Hi everyone, today we are going to review another horrible case with you. Please support my channel, click on subscribe and on the bell. According to statistics, the number of crimes committed by juveniles has been increasing worldwide in recent years. There has been an upsurge in violence among school children, usually directed at their peers, and the victims are often hospitalized, disabled, or even killed after such incidents. Such hostile acts usually have one goal: to prove their own superiority, power, and permissiveness. Plus, the laws of many countries are lenient to juvenile offenders, which gives them faith in their impunity. The story of a French girl named Agnès Marin, who died at the hands of a high school student, shook the whole country. They studied in a prestigious college with an impeccable reputation in which it seemed nothing like this could not happen. However, as it soon turned out, the perpetrator had attacked the girls before, but his wealthy parents managed not only to keep the case quiet, but also to arrange a son in a good school in another city, hiding the truth about his adventures. It is said that teenage aggression is a form of protest during the period of personality formation and search for oneself. But in our story today, this boy's cruelty was the result of a complete lack of empathy, the ability to empathize and sympathize with others. He was extremely dangerous to society and incorrigible, and therefore became the second teenager in French history to be sentenced to life imprisonment. Who was Agnès Marin? Agnès Marin was born in 1999, November 26th in Paris, and was the only child of the couple Paula and Frédéric Marin. The girl grew up in a fairly well-to-do family. Parents adored their child and sought to give her all the best. Agnès, from an early age, did not know anything to refuse. She was dressed in brand-name stores, taken to the sea, bought expensive toys and gadgets. Marin was an active, sociable, and restless child. She always had a lot of friends and hobbies. She showed creativity, loved music and movies, and in the future dreamed of becoming a film director. At school, she studied well, and teachers noted her high abilities, but often to achieve the best results, she was prevented by banal laziness and inattentiveness. At the age of 13, Agnès got involved with a bad company, which negatively affected the girl's studies and behavior. She started smoking, and not only regular cigarettes, drinking alcoholic beverages and skipping school. Her parents were not in favor of harsh measures of upbringing and several times tried to simply talk to their daughter, but the conversations did not lead to anything. The girl promised to correct herself and to stop communicating with bad company, but she lied. When she was once again caught smoking and drinking beer right on the territory of the educational institution, the question of her expulsion arose. Her parents realized that if their daughter stayed in Paris, she would continue to socialize with people who had a bad influence on her, and nothing would change. Therefore, Frédéric and Paula decided to transfer Agnès not just to another educational institution, but to send her to another city, or even a province, away from the capital's bustle and temptations. A new school. After reviewing several options, Marin's parents opted for a closed private college, Savignol, located in the commune of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon, which is in the department of Upper Loire region of Auvergne. It is a prestigious educational institution with almost a century of history. The college was founded in the 30s and worked on the principle of boarding school, where children not only studied, but also lived. However, by the end of the 2000s, the college faced serious financial difficulties and was actually teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. In a small community, with a population of only 2,500 people, young people increasingly sought to go to study in the capital or a major city, and therefore the local educational institution experienced a shortage of students and, as a consequence, a shortage of finances. Previously, to get into this college required a high grade point average as well as good characteristics. But even this did not guarantee admission because the competition was several people for one place. However, in 2011, the situation changed dramatically. Due to a large shortage of students, the school, in order not to go completely bankrupt, significantly reduced the requirements for admission, especially if they were children of wealthy parents who were willing to act as sponsors. Despite her behavioral problems, Agnès had a good academic record and grade point average, which allowed her to get into Savinol College, and the authorities simply turned a blind eye to her characteristic. Agnès' parents were happy. They believed that the change would be good for their daughter. She would become more responsible and more easily overcome such a difficult transitional age. Marin was a very sociable, cheerful, and friendly girl. She was able to fit into the new team from the first days. She felt comfortable and quickly made friends. In addition, she showed good progress in her studies, including in new disciplines, which were not available in her previous school in Paris. Her parents visited their daughter at the boarding school every 2 or 3 weeks. They were very pleased with her successes, as well as changes in behavior for the better. Agnès came home to visit only once during her studies. It should be noted that the new school was located on a vast territory surrounded by forest. There were no clear boundaries, fences, and strict security, because the crime rate in these parts was considered one of the lowest in the country. To get from the college to the center of the town of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon required no more than a quarter of an hour on foot, so students after school often went there in groups. But before 5 o'clock in the evening, all had to return back. There were disciplinary penalties for breaking the rules. The disappearance of a student. On November 16, 2011, Agnès, together with some of her classmates, decided to take a walk into town after class. There, she met a friend of hers, who studied in another school, but they often crossed paths and constantly called each other. The two girls decided to go shopping and fell behind the general company. A couple hours later, the young people returned to campus, but Marin was not with them. At first, this circumstance did not cause much alarm, and everyone was sure that she would soon return. But the time passed, it began to get dark, and the absence of the student seriously worried the teachers. Her phone was switched off, and she could not be found on campus, so the school management did not hesitate to report the incident to the police. The search began that evening and was conducted by law enforcement officers, teachers, and students of the school. They were divided into groups, each of which combed a different area, but no trace of the missing girl could not be found. No one had seen her and had no idea where she might be, but everyone hoped that she would return alive and unharmed. Marin's parents were notified almost immediately and asked if their daughter had returned home. Frédéric and Paola were shocked at the news and rushed to Le Chambon-sur-Lignon as fast as they could. They assured them that Agnès could not have run away, for she had no reason to do so and had nowhere to go. According to them, their daughter liked her new school very much. She had made many friends here. She did not feel any discomfort, and she had no conflicts with anyone. The father and mother of the missing Agnès became actively involved in the search. They talked to their daughter's friends, posted pictures of her all over the city asking for help in finding her, and tried to find any clues or leads. What is Agnès' friend hiding? The first thing the police did was to look for people who were the last people to see the missing Agnès and who might have known about her future plans. Girls from her class said that Marin met a friend of hers in the city and went shopping with her, but no one could give her name. However, soon the law enforcers managed to find Estelle, the same friend from another school. The girl was indeed the last person with whom Agnès had been in contact, so she was considered as a very valuable witness. However, she did not provide any useful information at the first interview. She said that Agnès had helped her choose a birthday present for her father. Then they had a milkshake each and said goodbye. Estelle headed for her home, and Agnès had to return to campus. The girl's story sounded plausible, but her behavior seemed a bit odd. She was visibly nervous and seemed to be holding something back. They decided to talk to her again, and suddenly the story she had told began to take on some details that she wanted to keep quiet. Estelle confessed that Agnès had planned to meet a young man that day, a man she had not told her the name of. Allegedly, it wasn't supposed to be a date, but the guys were going to do something bad, apparently taking illegal substances. A couple hours later, Estelle tried to call Agnès, but she didn't answer, and by evening her phone was turned off. The girl admitted that she lied at the first interrogation because Marin asked her not to tell anyone about the meeting with the mysterious guy, and she promised her that. However, When it became known about the disappearance of Agnès, Estelle decided to confess everything because she suspected that the sudden disappearance could be associated with this young man. It has been suggested that Agnès may have simply run away from college. The girl may have fallen in love and is now spending time with her secret boyfriend. Her phone was last online on campus the day she disappeared, but the device was turned off afterward and it was impossible to locate it. Nevertheless, police officers were able to quickly access all data regarding Agnès' calls and correspondence. It was then that the name of a 17-year-old Mathieu Moulinas, a high school student at the same school as the missing Marin, first came to the attention of the police. The first suspect. It turned out that the missing woman for the last few days corresponded with Mathieu Moulinas, but what could connect her with a 17-year-old young man, what interest they could have in common? In any case, the boy had to be questioned because he could have valuable information and shed light on the case. Nothing concrete or alarming in their correspondence could be found, but on the day of Agnès' disappearance, they were really going to meet on campus and walk together. Mathieu promised to show her something, but did not specify what it was. Moulin was first invited to talk to the police on November 17th. He behaved perfectly calm, but there were strange scratches on his face and hands that looked quite fresh. However, the young man admitted that he was dabbling in illegal substances, and yesterday he specifically overdid it, which caused him to lose consciousness and fell into a thorny bush where he lay for several hours. Classmates and educators confirmed that there were indeed problems with this student. Mathieu was admitted to Savinol College in January 2011. His parents transferred him here to supposedly protect him from bad company and problems. However, the young man even here used alcohol and various illegal substances, which raised the question of his expulsion. But he still felt sorry for him and was given time to improve. Moulinas looked like a typical rebel and troubled teenager. It was as if he challenged those around him with his appearance and behavior. He wore Gothic-style clothes, smoked and drank hot drinks right on the campus. He bragged about his antics to his peers, noting that he would not be punished for it. On the day of Agnès' disappearance, Mathieu disappeared for several hours. Toward evening, he came out of the woods in dirty clothes, with scratched face and hands, and to all questions he answered that he had had too much to drink and was passed out. Naturally, it all looked and sounded suspicious, but so far there was no hard evidence against him, and therefore the investigators decided to take a closer look at him. The spoiled son of rich parents. Mathieu Moulinas was born in December 1993 in the municipality of Négué-Solorgues in Garda, and was the eldest of 3 children of the couple Sophia and Dominique Moulinas. He grew up with his 2 younger sisters in a fairly well-to-do family, and from childhood was used to having his every whim immediately fulfilled. From an early age, he was observed some strange things. The boy was quite aggressive, irascible, hard to find a common language with peers, and tried to stay apart from other children. In adolescence, the situation worsened. Mathieu had outbursts of rage, he often started fights, began to drink alcohol regularly, and experimented with all sorts of illegal substances. But at the same time, despite his aggression and antisocial behavior, the young man had a very attractive appearance, thanks to which he became popular with the opposite sex. At the time of the described events in his hometown, he had a girlfriend about whom his parents knew and whom he visited on weekends. Mathieu had a number of records with the police, including the theft of prescription drugs from a pharmacy, which he committed with a friend. But the case was hushed up, probably thanks to money from the teenager's parents. He was also able to get into a prestigious private school with a low-grade point average and problems with the law, because his father offered to sponsor the school when it was in crisis. During interrogations, Moulinas behaved defiantly and arrogantly, but remained completely calm so that the police even doubted his involvement in the disappearance of Agnès. The guy was constantly twirling a yo-yo in his hands, his favorite toy, with which he never parted. At the first interrogation, he claimed that he did not know Agnès, but when he was shown a printout of their correspondence, he began to change his testimony, trying to lie on the fly, but quickly became confused in his own words. According to the guy, he promised to show Agnès a clearing in the forest where mushrooms grow. Allegedly, they used them together, and after Mathieu became ill, and he fell into a thorny bush where he lay until the evening, and when he woke up, he saw that Marin was not. He didn't go looking for her, but just went back to the campus because it was getting dark. A lawyer hired by the parents of the Moulinas was present at all the interrogations and recommended that his young ward show the place where he had last seen Agnès and where they, according to him, used mushrooms. However, Mathieu said that he would not be able to find that clearing because they stumbled on it by accident, and he got out of there on autopilot, not really understanding where he is and what is happening around. But Mathieu's words were soon refuted by experts who found no traces of mushroom ingestion in his blood. Moreover, the scratches on his body were recognized as a consequence of a struggle. That is, someone scratched him with nails, and apparently, it was a girl. A gruesome discovery in the thicket. The students of the school who had seen Mathieu coming out of the woods that evening pointed out the direction from which he had appeared, and it was in that part of the woods that it was decided to make a large-scale, thorough search. At that time, there was still a faint hope of finding Marin alive, but on November 18th, searchers awaited a terrible discovery. In a small clearing, hidden in a dense thicket, was found badly mutilated and partially charred body of the missing Agnès. Her clothes were torn, her underwear was missing. There were all the signs of violence, as well as traces of penetrating stab wounds. Doubt that this heinous crime committed by Moulinas, no one had no doubt, but it was necessary to wait for the conclusion of forensic experts, as well as to obtain confessions from the killer himself. Actually, when Mathieu was told about the terrible discovery, he did not particularly repudiate and began to testify, telling how everything was. Confessions of a ruthless killer. The strangler confessed that he deliberately lured Agnès into the woods to abuse her, but allegedly did not plan to kill her. However, she put up fierce resistance, scratched him, so he had to tie up the victim using the rope from his favorite toy, yo-yo, which he carried with him everywhere. Agnès screamed and threatened to turn him into the police, which pissed the guy off. Going to prison he did not want to, and therefore decided to kill the unfortunate and get rid of the body. Mathieu brutally beat Agnès, breaking her arm, nose, several ribs, and shin, and then gave her 17 stab wounds, most of which came to the neck, face, and chest. When the victim stopped showing signs of life, he doused her with a flammable mixture from a canister and set her on fire, hoping that the fire would completely destroy the body. Then he quickly left, because it started to get dark, and he did not see that the fire was soon extinguished. He took his toy off the dead body and took it with him. The high school student told about the incident calmly and in detail, as if savoring every word and watching the reaction of the detectives. He felt no remorse or pity for the victim. The examination confirmed that under the fingernails of Agnès were particles of skin and epithelium Mathieu, and in her body revealed traces of biological fluid of the rapist. Also on the rope of the very toy yo-yo found sweat traces of both the perpetrator and the victim. After all the necessary studies and medical conclusions, Agnès' body was given to her parents, who buried their only daughter in Paris. It is noteworthy that the funeral took place on November 26, 2011, on her birthday. The first victim of a young psychopath. When law enforcers thoroughly took up the biography of Moulinas, they were shocked by the fact that Marin was not his first victim, but this information was carefully tried to hide. As it turned out, he had been cruel to others since childhood, bullying animals, other children, and even his own sisters. He always took an incomparable pleasure in hurting others and watching them suffer. In August 2010, Mathieu attacked his young neighbor Julia, with whom he knew since childhood. The girl showed interest in the handsome neighbor, and he decided to take advantage of it. The guy lured her into the woods, where he hit her on the head, and while the victim was disoriented, tied her up with Scotch tape taken from the house, and then abused the unfortunate. Moulinas then began to strangle her, and probably would have killed her, but suddenly her cell phone rang. The perpetrator recoiled, looked around, and simply left the scene. A terrified Julia managed to free herself and called her parents, who immediately reported the incident to the police. Mathieu was arrested the same day. During interrogations, he cried, trying to appease the police, and also made attempts to shift all the blame on the victim, claiming that she herself provoked him, teasing and hinting at intimacy. But law enforcers understood that he had prepared for the crime in advance, and even took duct tape with him to immobilize the victim. Nevertheless, despite the gravity of the crime, Mathieu was not punished. The court took into account the very young age of the perpetrator, and instead of prison sent him for compulsory treatment in a psychiatric clinic, where he spent only 4 months. All this time, psychologists and psychiatrists worked with him and evaluated his condition. In December 2010, the chief specialist, who was in charge of Molinas, gave a conclusion that he was fully rehabilitated, and after the course of therapy, he no longer posed any threat to others. The court, after reading this report, released the offender, requiring him only to attend several anger management sessions. Parental patronage. It is worth noting that the Molina couple also put a lot of effort into getting their son released. They promised the judge that Mathieu would leave the region and not cause any more trouble, and they also said that they would make sure that the heir would undergo therapy. They hired the best lawyers who did everything possible to keep their client out of jail. After that, the parents started looking for a new school for their son, but since he had a criminal record for such a serious article, they did not want to accept him anywhere. Then the father personally went to the provincial closed college Savinol and made an appointment with the director. He knew about the financial problems of the institution and immediately offered to sponsor him. When it came to the admission of Mathieu to the college, the director noted that the guy is too low academic performance, and the criminal case of a potential student could hit hard on the reputation of the school. But Dominic Moulinas, in every possible way, vindicated his son, lying that there was no violence. Just his ex-girlfriend so tried to get back at him after the breakup. Allegedly, that's why he was released a few months later, when everything was sorted out. Surprisingly, but the leadership of the educational institution did not go into the details of the trial and accepted the version told by Dominic. Apparently, the amount of sponsorship he had announced played a decisive role, and they simply turned a blind eye to the crime and withheld this information from other students and their parents. The trial and the verdict. Mathieu had taken Agnès' life only a month before he turned 18. However, he was a minor at the time of the violent and brutal crime, and therefore the law provided for a lighter sentence for such offenders, and the trial itself had to be held in private. Agnès' parents insisted on making the sessions open, at least partially, with the involvement of journalists who would cover the case in the media. However, the Marin couple were refused, and the trial was held behind closed doors. The proceedings began only on June 18, 2013. The public prosecutor harshly criticized the numerous omissions in the case of Mathieu, in particular, the fact that the psychiatrist who gave the conclusion that the guy is not a threat to others was a young girl who did not have the proper qualifications. She had no previous experience with criminals and made a fatal mistake. The defendant underwent a second psychiatric examination, and experts concluded that not only is he unrepentant, but he may well commit a similar crime again if given the opportunity. Mathieu himself confirmed this, stating that he enjoyed watching the victim suffer. Moulins was diagnosed with symptoms of schizoid and paranoid disorder, which together with outbursts of uncontrolled aggression made him extremely dangerous to others. However, he was fully aware of his actions and could be held responsible for them before the law. Moreover, the prosecutor insisted that the young man be tried as an adult due to the brutality of his crime, and his request was eventually granted. On June 28, 2013, Mathieu was found guilty of abuse and murder with particular cruelty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and forced psychotherapy. He became the second juvenile offender in French history to receive such a harsh punishment. Moulinas's lawyers decided to appeal the sentence, but on October 10, 2014, a jury of appeals upheld the life sentence, ending any possibility of a review of the decision. In 2016, Mathieu's parents wrote and published a book in which they described their bitter experience and admitted that their son remains unrepentant.